Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and today I've got something really new. This is a Ferrocent fake rock with a face on it. I don't know what we call it, stone face or something, face stone. You see them a lot out on Pinterest and any blog that has garden sculptures on it. You always see a little rock with a face on it, and I've always really wanted one. And since I got so many responses from the last video when I asked you if you wanted to learn with me about cement sculpture, and so many people said yes, which is so nice of you. Thank you so much for responding. I really appreciate it. So this is my first tutorial on how to make a cement sculpture. A lot of the folks coming to my blog and to my channel I know come here because of the paper mache, and so I want to let you know the form for this fellow is just crumpled paper and masking tape. We do that with paper mache all the time. Then we're going to put, since this is ferro cement, the ferro part, the iron, is chicken wire. That you kind of have to fight it, but it's not hard. You put cement mortar over that, which is, again, not hard. The hard part is fighting with my gloves. I hate wearing gloves, and the ends always come out. The mortar mix that we're using is by Andrew Goss. I'm going to leave a link to it right down below in the description. If you don't happen to see it, if you're seeing this video anywhere else, come out to my blog, UltimatePaperMache.com, and I'll give you that. I want to make sure that you see his website too, because the recipe that I'm using for this face, the actual finished sculpture, is so easy to use. It's like butter almost. It's very intuitive. It's just a beautiful material to work with. You will have absolutely no trouble at all doing the sculpting part of the project. And I'm going to show you exactly how this was done in a close-up so that you can see exactly how easy that is to move it around. I'm using just some painter's knives. I got a whole set of these off of Amazon.com, and they work just like little tiny mason's trowels, so they're just perfect for this. So the video is going to take a long time, so I want to get straight to it. This is how it's done. Ferro cement face stone. I kept my sketch handy when I started out putting crumpled paper over a box. We're just building an empty space on the inside of our stone, and we will be taking that out as soon as the cement is hard enough. Now that I had a rock-shaped crumpled paper thing, I wrapped it up inside of a plastic bag so that the concrete won't stick to it, and then I get to do the fun part. You put on some heavy gloves if you've got them and start cutting some chicken wire. You do need at least 2 layers. A lot of people say you should have at least 3 layers of chicken wire in there. And you just wrap it around there and squish it on just as tight as you can get it. Take your time, make sure that you're careful so you don't get poked by this thing, and just keep winding it around and fiddling with it until you feel that you've got it set up the way you need it to. You don't want to cover the bottom, obviously, or you won't be able to get all that paper out. When your stone is completely covered with the chicken wire, then take some needle nose pliers. That would obviously have been a better choice. I didn't have them handy, and so I just grabbed what was there. But you need to make sure that every single one of the little cut ends is wrapped around something else and not pointing out. You're going to be pushing cement into this with your hands. You do not want to get poked by those little sharp points. And you also want those little ends to tie the piece together. The chicken wire really needs to hold on to itself. If you don't have enough ends, then you would actually have to go and get some more wire and use some separate wire to do that. There's usually so many ends sticking out that it's pretty easy to get it to hold itself together just with those little ends. Make sure before you finish it up that you go over it with your hand, just gently tapping it all over there just to find those little sharp points now while you can see it, and poke them inside so that you're not going to get hurt when you're doing the next step of this project. The last thing I did before mixing up my cement mortar was to get a piece of tie wire. It's an iron or steel wire that's very inexpensive and easy to bend, and I made a nose for my little guy. I made sure that the wire was attached up at the top and then bent it into a nose shape and attached it to the chicken wire down below. And then I put a little piece of crumpled aluminum foil under it. Now remember, there's going to be a lot of the cement mortar over this nose. It just has to be sort of nose shaped. You don't have to be very particular. I could have actually made it a little bit bigger and it would have been probably better, just because it would have supported the outside edge of the nose, but it's going to be just fine this way. Now we get to mix up some mortar. We're using Andrew Goss's recipe, as I said, for the mortar mix, the second one on the page that I'm linking to down below. We're using 6 cups of sand, 2 cups of Portland cement, 2/3 of a cup of stone dust. I'm using powdered marble or calcium carbonate, 1/3 of a cup of metakaolin, which is a special type of clay. The mix also has some fibers that are specially formulated for use in cement. These particular fibers I bought off of Amazon.com, and they're rather coarse. I do use a finer one for the face coat, but these work really well for strengthening the heavy coat that we're going to be putting right directly against that chicken wire. You need to make sure that all of the dry materials are mixed up really well. I tend to do it by hand, and I'll go ahead and take it outside, put it on my lap, and make sure that you've got a dust mask on, and just keep mixing it, and especially working on those little fibers to pull them apart. After the dry materials are mixed up really well, then I mix up half and half water and acrylic fortifier. This helps to strengthen the mix, and I believe it also helps to make it more waterproof. I'm also going to add just a few drops of this super plasticizer that I bought online. This lets you use a lot less water in the mix, but still the mix will feel like it's got more water in it. I know that doesn't make much sense, but it really does make a difference in how workable you can make your mortar without adding so much water that it will make it too weak. You also want to make sure that you have a bucket of clear water handy to clean out your tools. Even though you mixed up 6 cups of sand and all that other stuff, you don't actually have to mix water into all of it at once. You want to make sure that you only get enough wet that you can actually use in the next, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. This is Portland cement, and it does start to get hard almost as soon as you add water to it. It will take up to 28 days to complete the hardening process, but it does start stiffening up rather quickly. You can mix this by hand, or you can use an extension on a drill. I happen to be using this electric mixer because I found that it breaks apart those little fibers better than any other thing that I've tried using. What you'll want to do is mix it up as much as you possibly can. Keep on mixing it. You don't want too much water in it, which you can see right here is just kind of soupy. That's too much, and so I'm going to add some more of the dry materials, and I'll just keep working it until I have the mixture at the consistency that I need. You should be able to pick some up without it falling apart. You don't want it too thin and too juicy. This works about right. And as soon as you are finished mixing, you want to use that bucket of water and turn your mixer on. It doesn't really matter how well you clean this mixer off. I'm pretty sure you're never going to want to use it for anything else. So go to the thrift store and get a $5 mixer and just use it, especially for your cement. You'll never use it in the kitchen again, I promise. And now you can see me picking up a little bit of that mud, as they call it, and poking it into the chicken wire. You want it to go all the way through the wire and make it surround those wires if you can. I'm pushing it as hard as I can. I want it to go all the way to the plastic bag. I'm really not trying to put any detail on here at all, but I am pushing in to make sure that there's enough depth for the eyes. As you can see, I pushed in there on the right eye already. It's got a little bit of a indentation there. I'm going to go back over and do the other eye as well. Now I have all of my wires covered up and I'm doing a scratch coat. That just means that I'm making these little lines in there so that the next layer of mortar has something to physically hang on to. I just happen to have just a little bit of mortar left over, so I decided to fill out just a little bit of the forms. I made sure that I've got some eyebrows on there, and I just added a little bit of weight to the cheek area and the muzzle. I'm not really doing any sculpting right now. I'm just putting some more stuff on there so that it'll be a little bit easier. Basically, I didn't want my extra mortar to go to waste. I'm going to be putting some scratches on that part too. Just as soon as you're done, you're going to take your bucket and all of your tools outside and wash them off in some water. You do not want any of this Portland cement material going into your plumbing, or you're going to have a really, really expensive problem. It will harden underwater. That's what it's for. So don't wash this out in the sink for sure. And then you want to come back and cover your piece with plastic. You want to make sure that it doesn't dry out too quickly, because the process of the water mixing with the Portland cement is what makes it hard. If it dries out too quickly, that can't happen. As soon as it's hard enough so that you won't be damaging the face of it, you come back and cover it with some wet paper towels and then put the plastic back over it and leave it overnight. In the morning, your stone should be strong enough. You can, if you're careful, you can turn it upside down and take the paper and the cardboard box out of there. You don't need to do it right now. I just went ahead and did, just because I wanted to see what's in there. You are going to see some exposed wires that will need to be eventually covered with some more mortar. Because the cement is not as hard as it's going to get, you don't want to lay it down on its nose or anything like that. You want to be as careful as possible and pull those out. And then you'll be able to see that if some of the chicken wire isn't covered the way it needs to be, you can go ahead and mix up some more mortar and fill those up now, or you can wait like I did and do it after the face is on. For the face coat, I actually used some paint, some old paint from down in the basement, instead of that acrylic fortifier. The reason I'm doing this, partly just to get rid of some paint, but also because it extends the working time of the mortar just a little bit. You can only use 10% paint to water, so it'd be like 1 part paint to 9 parts water. It makes a little bit creamier mix too. I'm not really sure why, but I like the way it works. This is slightly experimental, although they are using this mixture in municipal landfill type situations where they're trying to get rid of paint. So it has been used a lot. I'm not sure it's been used in sculpture or not. And I add just a little bit of that super plasticizer too, so I won't have to have so much water, but I still have a nice smooth mix. For the dry materials, I'm using the first recipe on Andrew Goss's website. That is usually used by him for making really small things like jewelry. I'm using it for the face coat because I really like how smooth it is. You're using 3 cups of powdered marble, 3 cups of Portland cement, half a cup of the metakaolin, just a pinch of the finer fibers. I'll put a link down below so you can see where I got those. And then of course the water and the paint mixture. Remember to mix up all of the dry ingredients really, really well before you start putting any water in there. Some people say that mixing the dry ingredients together really well, it makes the difference between whether it's a successful mixture or not. If your stone isn't still damp from the paper towels, go ahead and either mist it with a spray bottle, or just use a damp brush and brush it over. You don't want it soggy wet, but you also don't want the stone to be so dry that it'll pull the water out of your new mixture. And then go ahead and mix up your dry materials with the wet materials, just like you did before. The mixture that you see me using now is probably just a little bit on the wet side. If you put too much water in Portland cement of any type, you do end up weakening the mix somewhat, but I kind of cheated anyway because it makes it so much easier to smooth it on in a really thin layer over this stone. All I'm looking for right now is to cover up the scratches, to give it a nice even color, and to make it nice and smooth. I will be texturing it a little bit just with my gloves. I'm not trying really hard to make it look terribly realistic. As you can see here, I'm just smoothing it over. If you have a stone that you really want to make it look exactly like that rock, you probably want to mix up just a small amount of mortar so that you can work on it a little bit longer than I did. I think right here you can see why I hate those gloves. I know that the gloves will stay on just a little bit better if you put some Vaseline on your hands first, but I always forget until it's too late, and you don't want to be doing that while your cement is thickening in the bowl, so I just go ahead and struggle with it. I did cover the entire stone, including the face, with this first batch, and then you go and clean out your bucket and clean up your tools and make some more so that you can really begin to sculpt that face. Now I have my second batch of that nice smooth mortar mixed up, and I get to start sculpting. This really is fun. It's buttery, it's really easy to work with. I hate to say it, but it's actually easier to sculpt with this than it is with paper mache clay. It isn't exactly like pottery clay. You know, if you're used to using pottery clay and you want something that's exactly like that, nah, this is not. But it's still an intuitive process, and it's really, really easy to do. So if you're thinking that sculpting with cement is just going to be too hard, you can give that up right now. It really isn't. It's a wonderful stuff to work with. The mortar did start to stiffen up before I was totally done, but the paint did slow the setting time down enough so that I had plenty of time to work. And I'll go ahead and let you see this whole process. It took maybe 15-20 minutes to get this whole face on there. And I'll just let you watch that happen. I don't know exactly how to do it. I just move things around, so I'll just let you watch and see how it was done. If your mortar does start getting too thick and just kind of crumbly and hard to work, don't add more water to it. Just throw it out and make some more. All the experts say that it will weaken the mix if you add water to it at that stage. After you're done for the day, you do need to cover it up with plastic, and then when it's hard enough, cover it with damp paper towels, just like I showed you before. Once it's all dried in the morning and hard enough, you should be able to turn it over very carefully and fill in all of those extra wires that are showing on the inside of the stone. In a few hours, the face is going to be hard, but still, oh, how do I say this? It's stiffened up enough to safely work on it, but it's still very soft. It's almost like carving with soapstone at this point. You can use any metal tool to smooth things out if you want to. As it gets harder, you can use rasps or harder tools, files, just about anything to kind of define the sculpture a little bit more if you want to. I'm not going to work too hard on this guy because I want him to be a bit rough and stone-like, but if you want a really finely detailed perfect sculpture, then you can continue working on it. You just have to change your tools as it hardens. Now my fellow isn't quite done yet. I'm going to cover him up with my wet paper towels. I'm going to let him cure overnight. I'm going to try to keep him damp for the next maybe 4 or 5 days actually, because the process of hardening where the water and the Portland cement somehow chemically combine with each other, that's what turns it back into stone, and that takes time, so we do need to keep it from drying out too much. And then after that I'm going to try to stain it. I saw some instructions out online about how to stain it with iron sulfate, just to make it a little bit more interesting, a few more colors going on, but kind of randomly, so it still looks like a rock. But basically it's done, and I hope you can see that it was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And if you make one, or if you make anything out of any material whatsoever, I really want to see it. Come show it off. UltimatePaperMache.com. I'll see you there.